Good morning, everyone. So I'm from the South and from the church. When I say good morning, I expect a response. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Thank you. Second time's a charm, Ashe. Greetings, blessings, defiant joy, revolutionary love, grace, and peace to all. Here in Chicago and in the online universe, because we will never forget our digital roots. My name is Reggie Hubbard, the same Reggie y'all been seeing at the top of the schedule for morning yoga. Y'all didn't know your yoga teacher was a big-bodied black dude, did you? A dude with a kind heart, but if provoked, a serious attitude. Don't let these prayer beads fool you, all right? And because I know many of you wanted to attend yoga, but weren't able to for whatever reason, here's a gentle reminder that at noon there's a 15-minute meditation if it fits your schedule, okay? Private dining room 4, 3rd floor, no shame, no shade. Y'all, I've been in this game for years, and I won't bore you with the recitation of my resume. Ain't nobody got time for that bullshit. But whether you've heard of me or not, you'll never forget me. And besides, as a devout hip-hop head and a Gen Xer, bad boys move in silence. I don't need people to know who I am. My pronouns are he, him, his, and I'm from the DMV, and I'd be remiss that in a nation founded on the rhetoric of revolution about taxation without representation, the citizens of the District of Columbia still are not fully franchised in these United States. DC statehood now. And before I launch into the meat of my formal remarks as a Netroots Nation's board member and a member of this beloved community, we stand in support of and solidarity with all people oppressed by state-sanctioned violence and attempted erasure. Black and brown people, LGBTQIA, and in this moment, we stand in solidarity with Palestine. We reject all right-wing extremism and all kinds of those who seek to erase us. And thank you for those who are supporting those who need your care and harm reduction in this moment. It's essential that we have tough conversations like this with accountability, but rooted in love, okay? As Nina Turner reminded us of Elder Martin Luther King's words, we will remember not the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends. Thank you. I'm honored to be the first on the stage today after last night's program. What a blessing that was. A bridge between worlds, so to speak. So shout out to all the authenticity, brilliance, courage, dreaming out loud, eloquence and fire, gracious and humbly imparted for justice, kindness, and love. What a program, right? And I got about 4 more minutes to share a word with you, an inspirational introduction, and that's not for the faint of heart. And it's not an easy task, but Black hippie doesn't shirk from a challenge. We often hear some variant of the phrase, hello, Netroots family, so I've decided to talk about the concept of family, not in the biological sense, but as a metaphor for intergenerational, intersectional community, as a beloved community rooted in justice, love, and compassion, and the defiant joy in pursuit of justice. Family loves you at your worst moment. Family celebrates you at your best moment. In a family unit, we can disagree agreeably as we collectively seek justice for all and common understanding. And even if our disagreements lead to a falling out, we can always fall back in with grace. Family has the connotation of lineage and intergenerational aspiration, the dreams and disappointments of the elders shared with the youth who carry their interpretations forward with their energy, passion, and verve. When I was in middle school, my grandfather told me a story of him returning from World War II, taking an entrance exam and getting high marks. His white officer told him, ain't no way a nigga can be that smart. He told his grandson graduated from Yale with a double major. And this ain't no humble brag, because again, ain't nobody got no time for that shit. That's mad corny. I say that to illustrate a point. The Supreme Court reeks of corruption and has torn asunder the veneer of impartiality. The Republican Party is drunk on racism, homophobia, willful delusion, and outright reactionary neo-fascism. Mother Earth has begun to demonstrate the consequences of years of extraction and disconnection. And yes, it is scary AF. But as Anna Lilia reminded us yesterday, it's not our fault, but it is our problem. What are we going to do about it? Y'all, we're at the threshold of a new world. It's in the zeitgeist. And for example, even at Netroots, there was an event that had the following phrase: engage in a diverse community with forward thinkers, cultivate meaningful connections, and discuss impactful initiatives. Be part of the dialogue that shapes tomorrow. Y'all, how dope is that, right? We get to shape the future. And whoever attended that event about open conversations, holler at me in the app or on social, for real, for real. We have the gift of reimagining the world and solving the organizing riddle of how to manifest our heartfelt dreams into policy outcomes. And it seems daunting and damn near impossible. But y'all, if we have breath, clear vision, courage, health, and one another, and the audacity to dream out loud and stand up for those dreams in unison, nothing can stop us. You heard? Nothing can stop us. Y'all can do better than that. And to keep it 100 and hearkening back to one of my mantras, those who say it can't be done should get out of the way of those doing the work, real talk. We must define what we stand for instead of defending what others say we stand for. So to effect this shift, it requires discipline, commitment, connection, compassion, and clear vision. So in this fight back moment, I have the following questions for you. What are you willing to sacrifice for the greater good? What are you willing to commit to help somebody else? How are you going to use your voice to live your dreams out loud? My Buddhist practice reminds me of the reality of impermanence and the necessity of compassion and wisdom and wise action. My Baptist lineage reminds me that trouble don't last always. My yoga lineage reminds me that we are in this together whether we like it or not. My Black liberation lineage reminds me that it's always the right time to speak truth to power in one accord. It's a matter of time before we achieve the liberation we seek. So in conclusion, be of good cheer, family. The fates are in our favor. And if you don't believe me, consider the words of the sage from Minneapolis, Prince Rogers Nelson. All seven, and we'll watch them fall. They stand in the way of love, and we will smoke them all with an intellect and a savoir-faire. No one in the whole universe will ever compare, because I am yours now, and you are mine, and together we'll love through all space and time, so don't cry, because one day all seven will die. May it be so. Ashe. It is now my honor to welcome to the stage my sister in this beautiful struggle from Minneapolis, if that was for you, Ilhan Omar.
Good morning, everyone. It is so good to be back at Netroots Nation. In 2019, I sat on this stage with my sisters, Deb Holland, Ayanna Presley, and Rashida Tlaib. And interestingly, we were introduced by then State Rep Summer Lee. Together, we represented the first African-born women elected to Congress, the first Palestinian women elected to Congress, the first two Muslim women elected to Congress, and one of the first two indigenous women elected to Congress, and the first Black women to ever represent the state of Massachusetts. At the time, we had just been sworn into Congress as part of the most diverse class in history. Today, I am proud to return to Netroots as part of even more diverse Congress. Over 50% of the freshman lawmakers this Congress are non-white, and a record high of 13 members of Congress are LGBTQ plus representatives. And we are expanding the communities we represent. We have the first Black woman to represent Pennsylvania, the first Latina representative in Illinois, and my little one was very excited about this one, the first Gen Z member of Congress ever. But it is not just about diversity on paper that matters. It is diversity of perspective that we bring. So when the Supreme Court says we are going to make it harder for Black and Indigenous kids to get into college, but do nothing about legacy admissions that favor the privileged, understand exactly what they are doing. They are trying to dismiss our experiences. They are trying to dismiss our perspective. They are trying to dismiss our pain. As my sister in service, Ayanna Presley, likes to say, those closest to the pain need to be closest to power. We need people in the halls of power who know what it's like to struggle with the burden of student debt. We need people in the halls of power who know what it's like to face discrimination based on their sexual orientation. We need people in the halls of power who know what it's like to live in the fear of deportation from the land they called home for their entire life. And we need people who are going to live with life-altering consequences of climate change for decades and decades to come. And we definitely need people who know what it's like to experience occupation, whether it is in Ukraine or Palestinian people who have now experienced occupation and displacement for 75 years. This is why diversity matters. So I am proud to welcome to the stage 4 amazing progressive new members of Congress. Congresswoman Summer Lee, the first Black woman ever elected to the House of Representatives from Pennsylvania, a dedicated activist, lawyer, and advocate for social justice. She has fought tirelessly to lift up movements, working people, and bring real change to her community. Congresswoman Delia Ramirez, the first Latina to represent Illinois in Congress, an accomplished social service director, community leader, a coalition builder who has dedicated her life and career to fighting for working families. Representative Greg Casar, my amazing successor as the whip of the Progressive Caucus, the proud son of Mexican immigrants who has passed policies to protect families from being separated, raise wages for thousands of workers, and has successfully fought to expand civil rights protection. And finally, Congressman Maxwell Frost. The first Gen Z member of Congress. Who I often joke with because I think I technically might be old enough to be his mother. who is a dedicated, strong advocate in ending gun violence, winning Medicare for all, and transforming our racist criminal justice system and ending the climate crisis. You all put your hands together and help me welcome them to the stage.
You're one of my Congress mothers.
Little fist bump summer.
So how are y'all doing?
We're good.
Good. So
Welcome
excited.
to Chicago, the best city in the world.
I don't know about that.
Go bias.
Orlando, Florida, you know.
Well, it's really good to see all of you. I know that we get to see each other, but we don't really get a lot of opportunities to take stock of everything that's taking place and everything that we've been able to accomplish. So I'm really excited to be able to start this conversation by asking about the journey to Congress. So maybe each of you can take a little time to tell us about your campaign origin story. What was the moment where you decided, okay, I'm definitely going to do this, and what got you there? So we'll start with Max.
Yeah, thank you. Hello, Netroots. This is my first Netroots. Excited to be here. To be super quick, it was January 2021. I had some friends that were talking with me about running for office. It was friends that I had been arrested with during the Black Lives Matter uprising. So it really came from a special place. They said, Maxwell, you know, we think you should run for office. I said, hell no. And then I went on with my day and my month. And, but really it was connecting with my biological mother for the first time in my life in mid-2021 and learning about her story, the fact that I had many siblings, and you know, through my life, I've always really latched onto this quote, Cornel West quote, you gotta see the world through the eyes of the most vulnerable. And being on the phone with my biological mother and hearing about her life, I didn't realize it, but I had been fighting for her, right, as an organizer, and I never even knew it. So it was a very spiritual thing for me, and I hung up the phone and said, I guess I'm gonna run for Congress. And that's my campaign origin story.
So I also said hell no. I come from the state legislature. Illinois has become one of the most progressive states, if not the most progressive in my opinion, right? Raising minimum wage, making sure that we're moving on clean energy, codifying Roe v. Wade, expanding healthcare so non-citizens are able to have access to healthcare until we get Medicare for all, and the list goes on. So coming from the state legislature and being asked to run for Congress, I'm like, hell no. But we got to build a coalition and make sure we have a progressive person that comes from our roots, from our community, representing us in Congress. We can't be apologetic about. And so I said no a couple times. And then I also said, where are we going to raise money? We're not taking money from corporate contributions. We're not going to go in the traditional way. How do we build? But I'll say to you, for me, Ilhan, having a community of people, my mother, my husband who's a dreamer, coupled with my colleagues, right? In this movement that we all got elected in the last 5-6 years, they said to me, your name will be on the ballot, but we're all going with you to Congress. Oh. This is about what we're building together. And we ran like that, and we won in a 4-way race by 42 points when I wasn't supposed to win. But that's what power is and the responsibility of delivering now that we're in Congress. Yeah.
Hey y'all, buenos dias. How's everybody doing? So I really felt like it was time to run for higher office. I was a city council member. I had been a labor organizer in Austin, Texas. When I was trudging, yeah, what's up, Texas? When I was trudging through the snow in less than 10-degree weather in Texas, which does not happen in Texas, we had our entire power grid go down, hundreds of people die, people with no water and no power, not just for days, but sometimes for weeks. And I was carrying blankets donated by neighbors who didn't have power in their own homes but had spare blankets to a gym where we were keeping people alive. And as we were walking through the snow, my staff sent me a note saying that Ted Cruz had just been spotted getting on a plane to go to the beach in Cancun. And somehow even, you can boo louder for Ted Cruz at Netroots. And somehow even worse, our governor was going on Fox News to blame windmills and the Green New Deal for the power grid failure and the climate crisis. And it was at that moment that it was so clear that not only are they unfit to govern, but they're dangerous, and that we have to go over their heads. And that in our recent history, people of conscience and movements have come together to undo what repressive regimes in the South have done by passing the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act and creating Medicaid, and that we're called to a similar moment now to not just pass Medicaid, but pass Medicare for all. To not just take on the environmental crisis, but to take on the climate crisis. To not just pass the Voting Rights Act, but the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, to restore voting rights to every single person, black, white, and brown, incarcerated or not, immigrant or not. And I think that what pushed me to say I could do this is that there was a national movement and local movements that were pushing for all of us, and what brought us all here today.
So what's up, Netroots? Greetings. Hey, y'all. This is not my first Netroots. Shout out to my people, One Hood. Y'all know I saw y'all. Hey. I love my people in the building. These are my origin stories, and we talk about why I'm here. Listen, y'all, I'm black. I'm working class woman from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, which is the most progressive city in the country now. But listen, I ran for office and I found myself in here because when you're black and you're working class and you're a woman and you're poor and you're dealing with all of this and you live in a community with some of the worst air quality in the nation and your neighbor's grandkid has been shot in the back by police officers 3 times, when you deal with that, listen, you know that our task is you either gotta run, you gotta fight like hell, or you lose, right? So we're coming up on times where we need people who have the ability, who are empowered, who have the support structure to be bold, to go into these places and do bold things. And it's not easy, and it wasn't an easy decision. Nobody says yes to this. Nobody's like, you should run for Congress. And everybody immediately says, yes. If you find that person, don't ask them again. No, don't ask them again. Because this is a deep thing, right? Because we're going into deep places. We're going into high places with people in a system that is built to beat us down. And the reason why I knew I can do it is because I happen to have been in the Netroots room the day where my sister Ayanna Presley said that we don't just need people with black and brown skin. We need folks who are going to fight for black and brown people. I've been in rooms with, and I've watched a squad who came before me who looked in the eye of the enemy and they stood tall. Those were the things that empowered me. So even when I was afraid, even when I was like, I don't know if we can do this, even knowing the times that we're in, how important it is, how hard it was going to be, I said, you know what? If there are people who are with me who can do this, and I know I can be with them. So I ran and I ended up getting across the finish line because I looked at the folks who I was with. And I said, this is a crew that's worth fighting with. And I know it's a crew who we can win with. And it's because of this audience. I'm like, we can win this. So we did it.
So we did it.
So we did it.
You all can see why we're like really excited to have these freshmen in Congress. Many of you talked about what made you decide, and I know that, you know, from being first is not easy. It's challenging. So I can already imagine how complicated many of your campaigns were. But many of you also alluded to the fact that you had a lot of people, right, backing you and telling you can do this, and you had your own squats to get to Congress. But I want to talk about a little bit on what it felt like to transition from a candidate to now being a member. Because we know that there isn't a lot of time to try to figure out what to do and, you know, to how to adjust. Because the space between winning your election and coming to DC for that orientation, for swearing in, all of that is just a blink of an eye. So what did you find to be the most difficult part of transitioning from a candidate to a congressperson?
Ooh, you're looking at me.
You start.
You know what, honestly, first, the first hardest part about transitioning was the fact that my campaign was ugly as hell. And it did something to me. When you get beat up the way that I got beat up, you can't go through that unchanged. And no matter how exciting it is to win, you still, a part of that, you have to carry a part of that sorrow with you, knowing that things won't be the same. And then immediately, I was talking to Alex, and she was like, listen, it's gonna be like Hogwarts, like someone's gonna call you and they're just gonna get whisked away. And I was like, no, really. And you get like a secret message and it's like, be in the Capitol on Tuesday, like next Tuesday. And you got to get down there and you don't know if you're getting a reimbursement and you got to quit your jobs and you don't have any paychecks and you have nothing. You start with nothing. People think that government comes prepackaged. Y'all, it does not. When you start as a member of Congress, you don't have a staff, you don't have a website, you don't have a Twitter handle, you don't have a pen, you don't have a printer, you don't have a piece of paper. Literally, you don't have an apartment. You don't know how you're gonna get there. You gotta find out where you're gonna stay. Me and Delia looked at each other 3 days into orientation. We're like, you have somewhere to live? And she was like, no. I was like, oh, we're gonna live together. And then Greg literally gave up the house that we ended up living in because he found something better. So it's like that. So it's like that. You're finding out everything in real time. You're trying to find staff in real time. Who are gonna be your people who are gonna be for you when we go to this place that's not built for us? Everything tells you to get hill-minded people, to get people who know what they're doing. And I'm saying that I came here to do something new. So I had to find people who are willing to do something new with me, and that's not easy.
So the transition wasn't easy, but I do want to talk a little bit about this, that it was better for me this time than it was transitioning into office in 2014 as a council member. And I think it speaks to the progressive movement. I mean, back then, being a Fight for 15 person, telling everybody to organize their workplace, talking about publicly funding abortion travel for young people, that was like it was a lonely thing. And then seeing Ilhan and these other folks that blazed that trail in 2018 made it easier for us. Now we came in with this crew of people. And so coming in 2014, feeling really isolated and alone, I think it's important for us to own that we've really shifted stuff. I mean, a lot is hard, but we should know that we actually can change things. And so now we've got these folks with us in Congress. Like, I can listen to records with Maxwell and go out dancing with Delia and lose to Summer in basketball and have a team. And when you start having that team, that brings more and more people through the door, and that's going to change the face of power.
Yep.
And I think it's really important. You were saying, like, you're walking into this space. I think for all of us, it was a different experience coming into Congress, but to be able to build this relationship, right? To be intentional on a text thread, on a multiple text threads, right? Checking in, how are you? How are you feeling about this vote? How are you gonna vote? What do you need from me, right? How do we talk through this? I think it's so incredibly important because the moment you're in that space, you are targeted. Your existence, right, is a threat to the status quo that said you should not be there. So I think that's incredibly important. But I'm gonna also tell you, this is the other piece that I think we don't talk enough about, how you select your staff. Because you have to have a team that shares your values, has the same North Star that you do, and that understands that you are part of a movement. That you're not just saying, yes, or I'm gonna co-sponsor that here, or I'm gonna move this way, or I'm gonna be the comfortable Democrat. I sit as the vice-ranking member in Homeland Security, having to look at Marjorie Taylor Greene, called My Family Aliens, Illegals, and an Infestation, every committee hearing, right? So how do you have a team that not only is preparing you for committees, but is also cheerleading you, walking with you, pushing you to stay grounded to who you are, because that place wasn't designed to have working class people there. And I think the other part for me that I had to really understand is, while it wasn't designed for us, it really wasn't, we belong there. And I think that's really important. I'll close in saying this. Oftentimes we are told that being working class is actually a liability. Oftentimes we are told being working class, you're not gonna be able to move with power, fit in these places. We are a contribution and an asset to US Congress because we have the ability to relate to more than 90% of this country, unlike the rich billionaires that bought their seats to get there. So yes, we belong, and yes, we need more of us.
You know, for me, to what Delia was saying, when we got that message that was like, be on the Capitol on Tuesday, or Sunday.
Yeah, Sunday. Yeah.
When we were there for a week, it was just a whirlwind, right? Like, for all of us. We had just won our elections, we come in, we're learning all this, we're meeting all these people, and I remember coming home that, like, Saturday, walking in my living room and literally saying, I kind of forgot what my living room looked like. I mean, and I remember standing there and I was like, this is how people lose themselves. I like finally really understood it, being kind of on the other side. And I was like, never again, right? Like, I'm not perfect. I have to set up systems of accountability with the people in my community to make sure that this never happens again, even that inkling of that feeling. And that was really important to me. And so working with my staff, and we're still figuring out, we don't have it perfect. How do we, have this concept of co-governance and what that really means, that the decisions we make are always rooted in the community that I'm representing. And that's really important to me. And I learned that first week on how important that was. But having folks like this be my family in Congress is why I'm able to do it at all, to be honest. And there's people, Greg was just talking about this, there are folks who came before us who made it possible. Because this is really hard, but it's not impossible because of the people who came before us. And I think about, as a young person, I think about someone like Alexandria or Ilhan who came in and literally went through hell, right, as a freshman. I think about the fact that I'm in the Congressional Black Caucus and the Hispanic Caucus. All I had to do was sign up for both of them. There are people who came before me who went through hell to do that, to be recognized as Afro-Latino. And so I'm also recognizing the fact—
still are not recognized.
And still not fully recognized. And I'm just realizing the fact that so many people went through those trials and tribulations before me that made it possible, and I'm so grateful and so honored to be a part of that tradition.
We're zooming through, Ilhan. We're zooming through.
I know. I was having just flashbacks to all the horrors as you all were describing this. But you're right. It does make a difference when you have a community, and there is a really close relationships that people develop with their classmates. Because it is a unique experience, right? Because it's about the time and the moment that you get elected and what's going on. It's about, what is also happening on the Hill as you're coming in. And I think oftentimes people don't know, there are everyday people who get elected to Congress. I remember there was a member from Iowa, talking about just the resources, whether you get reimbursed and these kind of things. And this member she's no longer there, but I remember vividly having a conversation with her on how she didn't have enough money to eat. And just the challenges of what it means to have run against all the odds, to now come in and to be reminded that everybody else feels comfortable because this was all built for them and it is not for you, and you're gonna continue to be in this struggle. And so how do you create a community around you to get you through that struggle? And one of the biggest struggles that we had is that we walked into a shutdown. So talking about not having a computer, not having telephones, there was no government. To be able to do that for us. It wasn't even can you prepare fast enough to get these things going? We historically were in the longest shutdown in the history of the United States when we got sworn in. But you also came into another kind of history when you got sworn in. You got sworn in within a session that was without rules, without a speaker.
At 2 a.m.?
And differently than us, you walked into a minority. I always say, I served in the minority when I was in the Minnesota House. I'm now serving in the minority after serving in the majority. There's nothing more painful, y'all, than being a minority in government. And so can you talk a little bit, and whoever wants to take this, and how you have been able to navigate the minority, and how are you finding forums for your ideas and the policies that you want to push?
I can take this one. I mean, look, we all looked at committees, right? And we wanted to get into what they call the A committees. I wanted to get into financial services because I want to work on housing, right? I think we all, we were judiciary, right? There are all these committees that folks wanted to get into, and then you had to remind yourself, you're a freshman in the minority, so there's even less seats in those committees, and the Republicans took seats in areas where they should have been getting more members, not less. So I had to select, with a very limited option of which committees, and I serve now in Veteran Affairs. And people are like, what's a progressive doing serving in veteran affairs? And it's interesting, right? Because if you come from organizing, you always know how to, okay, we're in this space, where is the power, what is our commitment, what are we trying to move? I have an opportunity there to work on veteran housing. I have an opportunity there to work on abortion care for veterans. I just introduced a bill that came out of subcommittee, that will restore benefits for veterans who've been defrauded by for-profit schools. Now, I'm in Homeland Security, I can't do any of that, but in this committee, right? So it's like, I think one of those things is like, how can you, even in the minority, find places where you can deliver in some way for your community? Because what our community isn't going to have is this excuse here, I'm in the minority, I can't do anything for you. That's BS, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like the worst thing is people saying, well, in the minority, your job is to wait to be in the majority. No. That's the worst. And then people saying your job is to win the majority, I think is the bare minimum, winning elections. But that's the bare minimum. It's actually this huge opportunity for us to actually build an agenda, build a caucus, and build the kind of power in the community so that we have an actual pro-working families majority that will wield its power on behalf of folks. That's the point. And so right now, I think we have to be organizing and supporting people in every district. If we have movement organizations functional across the country, if we have a strong progressive caucus that's willing to whip and willing to push, if we push on the president, then the idea might be that we can actually win a majority that will change the rules so that we stop having essentially psychopaths able to set the rules and do something good for folks, have people believe in democracy and build that kind of virtuous cycle. Yeah. So right now is the organizing time.
I would say, too, there's like a blessing hidden in the curse of being in the minority. And I think the blessing is it's testing my creativity, right? It really is. And it's given me an opportunity to take a step back and feel and like say, like, how can I do this better? And I ran on this. I come from a state that's run by a fucking fascist. And when yes, boo. And when
we can boo more for Ron DeSantis.
We can boo higher for Ron DeSantis. Boo! And it's not just him. There's an apparatus, right? But either way, when people were telling me, oh, we got to wait for the majority, which there's some members that even told me that, and then I come home and I see, books being banned, trans people getting erased, just everything going on, I was like, I can't wait around. You can't do it. So it flexes your creativity. And like, for instance, we hosted an ad hoc hearing, which is like, you just get a room and then you make it a hearing. And we did it on Florida and what's going on in Florida. And it gave a lot of people hope and gave us the opportunity to highlight what was going on. On the campaign side, I'm very passionate about year-round organizing and that we always have to be knocking doors, making phone calls with our movements, with our unions, etc. And building that trust with the community. And so we're doing that now. We have 10 paid organizing fellows that are super young that we're training, and we're gonna do it forever. That is like my commitment. And so I think being in the minority has given me the opportunity and given my team the opportunity to kind of take a step back and say, like, how can we do this better, especially in this moment and especially in our state that I know and that I love and that I was born in. How can we do better for them? And so I really refuse this whole thing where it's like we have to wait for the majority. I didn't run to wait. I did not run to wait. And so I think that's like the blessing and the curse there.
Now, do you have a banger or you want me to answer that one?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay. I was in a minority for 4 years in the PA House. On the day that I got elected to Congress, I came into the minority in Congress and the State House won a majority. So I've been doing this forever. And I think that, I personally think that minorities are times where you expand the realm of what is possible. People ask me all the time, they were like, what was your legacy or what is the thing that you're most proud about at the state level? And they always want you to say a bill. They always want you to talk about your tenure in office as if the only thing that you can do is to get a bill across, the finish line. And yes, that is one marker of success. That's one metric, but it is not the only one. And when we're progressives, we recognize that the bill to get Medicare for all over the finish line isn't gonna happen on just one day and it ain't gonna just be one of us. You know what? When you're progressives, we're expanding the realm of what's possible. We are making Democrats and independents and anybody else understand that we actually can push for more. And as we're doing that, we're building bigger majorities. As we're doing that, we're making a space that is more safe, that is more welcoming for the next crop of people to come in. We're making sure that we're building armies of folks to push our bigger agendas. Because yes, we can all get a name. We can all name a bridge. We can all name a post office. We can all do some source of bills. But the reality is that for us, we actually need the bigger thing, which means that we need to do more lifting and we need to get more people. So I believe in an opt-in, not an opt-out, right? I want more progressives. I don't want fewer progressives. I don't need to give everybody a litmus test. I want to get you to where I need you to be so that we can get liberation for my people, right? And I'm willing to go and do that. So that's what we do in minorities. And I'm way too used to doing it. I would like to do it in the majority.
Summer, you made me think about something, and I want you to expand, and maybe I'll throw it back to Max as well. You know, most of us are younger than the average member of Congress. Most of us are people of color. All of us are people of color. And there's something about your story that you began with earlier that deeply resonates with me, because I have not had a non-brutalizing campaign. Every single campaign I've run has stripped so much of me and my family and like my community. And I've always worried if that could be an obstacle for other people saying, I'm gonna do this, when they see how much we've been beaten up, right? I've been proud to see so many, you know, Minnesota now has a trifecta, everything is going really great, shout out to Minnesota. There are more people of color than when I was there, so things are going well. Can you say a little bit about where do you think our movement is going, what it needs, and how do we sustain ourselves and continue to stand up to the establishment?
Yeah, I can, y'all, because honestly, while we're all here gathered at Netroots, I need y'all to know that we have a big, big threat, you know, to our movement. We have had cycle after cycle where, defying the odds, we have been able to do incredible things, right? The fact that we have Ilhan and that we have Rashida, who came in as our first Muslim women, the fact that we now have a new cycle. Every cycle we have added to our numbers, and every cycle we are emboldening in our movement. But the opposition is also getting savvier, and they're richer, and they are more bold to do anything that they can. The ends justify the means with them. When I think about it, how my district was basically just bombarded by ads, by money, by people who can say whatever they want to get whatever they need, those folks are not gonna stop. I'm the only person who was able to fight back against AIPAC's fight, right? I'm gonna just say it. I'm the only person from my cycle who made it. And when they came into the district, they didn't come into the district actually listening, actually wanting to know, what do our communities want? What does our Jewish community want? What does our black community need? Those weren't folks who cared about that. They came in with a conservative agenda. They are conservative people who want a conservative US Congress. And it's okay to say that. But the reality is that they're gonna come up against us, and they're gonna come up against progressive, especially people of color who wanna run. When they put ads into my district, they said I wasn't a Democrat, they were dog whistles and all these things, and I thought about little black girls who watched those ads. And I can't tell you how many of them came up to me and they were crying because they had seen something in me and our movement, and that made them shrink a little bit. We want to do things, and as a movement, we have to do things that only make us grow. We don't want to do things as disenfranchised, so we can't use the same tactics as them. Even when we're coming up against money, that means that we have to come with love. We have to come with coalition building. That means that we have to come stronger, building out. We can't use their tactics because their tactics keep people home. So know that the threat is coming, but that means that we need to be organized in every district. When you leave up out of here, you need to go back to your home, and we need to start organizing. We need to start finding candidates who are reflective of our ideals and our values, and we need to love them and we need to support them. Yes, accountability, but also we all are collectively accountable in a co-governing model. We need to make sure that we are getting them the money they need. We're making sure that we're getting them the exposure that they need, and we are making sure that we are fighting back and telling the truth where there are lies in the air. So that's going to be our task, and I hope that we are all up for it, because it's about to get ugly.
So I want to end. I want to end with Max, because, you know, I've been in Congress for a bit. All my children have grown up to know that everything is possible, right? They've seen me, they've seen people breaking barriers, but they've never really written a letter to a member of Congress. But they wrote it to Max. My little one saw Max, and she was like, how old is he? And I was like, not that old. And she was like, can I write him a letter to tell him thank you? And so I want to end it with you, because there was something hopeful in that, and that was also, I think, part of the message that she's been hearing, of that young people stepping up and leading, and seeing her older sisters do that, and now seeing you do that. What are you most hopeful about for your generation? And where do you think that movement is going to head to? We got like 45 seconds, so. But leave us with
real
some
quickly,
hope.
yeah. When I was a national organizing director at March for Our Lives, I remember there was a call that just really put this in perspective for me. It was like all of our organizers across the country, I think I was talking about some event, and then I was like, does anyone have any questions? And there was someone who was like 12 or 13 years old that unmuted and asked a series of questions about how folks with a specific disability would access this, how people who didn't have access to internet would access this. And just hearing that, seeing the world through the eyes of the most vulnerable, from someone who's part of my generation, but when I was that age, I wasn't thinking that way. That gave me hope. And as I've been able to meet with so many more young people across the country, I feel like that is a defining factor of not just Gen Z, but young people in general. They're looking at the world and going like, this is messed up, right? And I want more for my neighbor. And we're rejecting this politics of scarcity that past generations have put us in. That if I'm getting something, that means you must be losing something, right? No, not in this country. We accept the politics of abundance where we can all eat, we all have housing, we all live in a clean environment, we all have the resources that we need. And that's what gives me hope. And the resiliency is difficult, especially being in my state, because when I decided to run, so many people told me a progressive can't win in Florida, in this district, et cetera. And I sat down and I said, what does it look like to be progressive from the South? Like what does that look like? Especially when we have this threat of fascism around. And it was young people time and time again, whether it was the Dream Defenders, which I know some of them are here, Squad! March for Our Lives, young immigrant farm workers in Apopka, right? Like all across my state, that's what's giving me hope. Yeah, Apopka, yeah. That's what gives me hope, are the movements of young people rising up that I think have really changed the way this country thinks about issues and thinks about each other. And like Summer said, we gotta lead with love. We gotta love each other. Love is not a passive thing. Sometimes love is aggressive, and that's an okay thing, but that's what gives me hope.
Look at, they're gonna flash.
I know,
yeah,
it's flashing.
It's like saying wrap up, it's giving me a strobe light.
I think you all can listen to them. I can continue to talk to them for hours, but we're out of time. It is a perfect way to end, knowing that we are up against massive amounts of challenge. We are still hopeful because we know together we are going to win.
Can I do one quick plug? One quick plug. You want to love with us? We're doing a Netroots after party for Greg and Summer in my district in Logan Square. See Levi right there. There's information. Join us tonight in Logan Square.
Yes.
Thank you.
Sorry, I thought you were gonna say something else. They're gonna yell at me.
Representing Washington's 7th Congressional District, please welcome Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal.
Netroots! Netroots Nation, how you doing? Let's give it up for that incredible panel of Congressional Progressive Caucus members. Deputy Whip, Deputy Chair Ilhan Omar, CPC Whip Greg Kassar, Representative Summer Lee Maxwell Frost, and your hometown hero, Delia Ramirez. But most of all, I just want to thank you all for being here and for being engaged and for pushing to make our democracy truly democratic, for being involved in elections from the local level all the way up to the federal level, and for organizing for a better world. Now, I've been to a couple of Netroots nations, so I know you guys are ready to go. And part of the reason I like to come, and part of the reason I wanted to come and speak to you today, is because this is a moment for us to reflect on our movement, to not only look at our goals and our wins, but also at the challenges that face us and how we're going to overcome them.
In the months after January 6th, when I was trapped in that gallery with dozens of my colleagues during the insurrection, certain at some points that we would not emerge alive, I would often reference what we're facing as a nation as a crisis of our democracy. But today, I want to suggest to you that I don't think that's sufficient as a way to describe what we're up against. Today, we are facing down a violent movement of fascism that aims to destroy institutions in favor of a strongman, discredit election results or other forms of government aimed at strengthening the power of the people, and most fundamentally, to construct enemies based on virulent racism and hate that can then be criminalized or justified for constant attacks, both verbal and physical. And of course, that's the former president, whose name we're not going to mention, but it's also Ron DeSantis, who is banning abortion and books and drag shows with fervor, while criminalizing the very immigrants who build and serve his tourist industry that drives the state. It's Tommy Tuberville, who went on national television and denied that white nationalism is racism. That ain't right. It's extreme MAGA Republican members of Congress who blithely talk about invasions and bully trans kids like my beautiful trans daughter right there in congressional hearings. It's Stephen Miller and Steve Bannon, the Proud Boys, the Oath Keepers, whose very goal is to make sure that they foster the kind of hatred against black and brown people that is then able to have people blame them for people's situation and make them targets of physical violence. Now, I know, as so many of you know, that these are not new elements to our country. They are baked into the founding of this country. But perhaps for the first time, at least in our more modern history, the president occupying the highest office of our land not just gave a nod to, but openly courted these horrific ideologies, and then used his presidential power and all the powerful tools of government to strip away freedoms and convert institutions to a new radical path of serving a would-be direct dictator and not the people, decimating agencies that serve people, from the Social Security Administration to the IRS to the Immigration Services Bureau, but also taking over the Supreme Court, the branch that is supposed to be the final arbiter of justice in our land, and even stacking federal courts with people willing to cater to the extreme right rather than honor decades of precedent. And if that weren't bad enough, I do want to call out the work of previous Republican and even Democratic administrations that helped to create this oligarchy that we exist in today. What does that mean? That is where power is controlled by very few people, the wealthiest individuals and the wealthiest corporations, where money serves as the language of power, and where the rules are rigged to benefit those very interests. This neoliberal economic theory was part and parcel of creating these enormous economic and racial injustices and inequalities, of pushing for free trade over fair trade, for blocking, even with democratic control of our houses, a prioritization of basic economic needs for people. Things like a raise in the federal minimum wage, or strengthening collective bargaining and working people's power, of passing, including under Democratic presidents, a framework for government benefits that criminalize poverty rather than recognizing that poverty is a policy failure, not a personal failure. And by the way, we in this last administration and last Congress showed that that is exactly true when we passed the child tax credit and we cut child poverty in half in just 2 years. So although the Biden administration and our Democratic majority in the 117th Congress has taken a massive turn away from that neoliberal trickle-down economics to Bidenomics, the structures that enabled that trickle-down thinking are still there. and they're still served by money in politics, by the corporate capture of our government institutions that have revolving doors between lobbyists and government. Elizabeth Warren and I have a bill for that. The profiteering system of healthcare where insurance companies control which doctors you can see or where you can go or whether you even have health insurance. Bernie Sanders and I have a bill for that called Medicare for All. Or the way in which debt collectors and corporate monopolies can rule your life and snuff out any opportunity for the little guy to have a life of dignity. And I've got a bill to break up those big monopolies. So I just want to be clear about this. These giant inequities help serve the fascists. And we have to make that connection. They strip hope from people that anything else is possible. And they make it difficult to tell the good guys from the bad guys because even the good guys don't seem to get stuff done for them. We have too many people in this country who are just trying to survive another day without hope that their kids can have a better life. And that's where you come in. That's where this room comes in. I'm not saying any of this to depress you, but to make it clear what we face and how important the work that you are doing is and how many results we have gotten just from 2 years of a massive shift in economic policy in this country. There is a competition for the hearts and minds of the working class, of poor people, of the left behind, and the newly found. So what do? I believe that we need to change both the rulers and the rules. For 20 years before coming to Congress, I was a grassroots organizer, starting and leading the largest immigrant advocacy organization in Washington State. Shout out to Washington. Part of the committee that made Seattle the first major city in the country to pass a $15 minimum wage 10 years ago. And on the picket lines and in the streets to build union power. Today, it is that same organizing that is going to win us back the country and allow us to change not just the rulers, but also the rules that stop us from making change no matter who is in power. Today, it's organizing that you do every day with the fundamental premise that every person and every place matters. That's what's going to get us there. No more transactional policies. Let's do deep organizing in our communities, in our streets, build up leaders that represent us and have the courage to stand up. Our urban and rural, our southern states where fascist forces are the strongest, and a Midwest that too often feels forgotten. The people that take a shower, as my friend Bernie Sanders says, the people that take a shower at the end of a day instead of at the beginning of the day. The single moms who keep everything together, our trans kids who are our heroes for their courage and just being who they are. The poor people being organized by the Poor People's Campaign and others of you in this room in West Virginia and Alabama and some of the poorest states in the country who are with us, but nobody's been listening to them. Every person, every place matters. We have to make that a truth, not just a truism. The Democratic Party has for too many years pursued a different strategy with a small sliver of swing voters to make up for the loss of working class support. Unfortunately, for too long, the party was chasing after well-off, nearly exclusively college-educated white suburban voters who had no problem switching back and forth between parties, and we've been spending an enormous amount of money per voter on these folks. And don't get me wrong, they're very important. We need them as well. But our universe of voters shrank instead of growing. The truth is that our biggest group of swing voters is not just these largely white suburban voters who swing back and forth from Republicans and Democrats. It is our giant base of poor people, black, brown, indigenous voters, immigrant, young people who won't swing Republican, but they will swing right out to the couch if we don't work to bring them in, to win their votes, their action, and their trust. I am in Congress. I was laughing at what I think it was either Delia, or Summer Lee that said, if somebody asks you to run and they say yes, then don't ask them again. I was one of those people like them that, I was asked for years and I was like, never, I'm an organizer on the outside. But I'm in Congress because I believe we need a stronger inside organized force that acts as a collective voting bloc. We need to build that, and that's what we've been trying to do as chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus for the past several years with the CPC, but also with our CPC PAC that has gone from raising just $300,000 when I first came into Congress 6 years ago to now raising $4.5 million that we can invest into protecting Summer Lee, electing Delia Ramirez, electing Greg Casar and Maxwell Frost. We've also honed what it means to say that you're a progressive in Congress by implementing a big rules reform package for the CPC. It should mean something to be a progressive. And while we all have different districts that we need to be attuned to, we also have to remember that courage is a muscle and it grows stronger by exercising that muscle. So we need to organize strong, courageous vote blocks that can vote together to push for the most that we can get. And that's what you saw happen over and over again when the Progressive Caucus members held the line on Build Back Better until we passed it through the House. And that is what led to the Inflation Reduction Act and the biggest investments in taking on climate justice, in making sure that Medicare negotiates drug prices for the first time, and for taxing wealthiest people and corporations. So you saw, we're beginning to change the rulers, electing people like the members that you just heard from and that you're going to hear from who are first in the category, but also making sure to keep the pipeline coming. But this year, we also need to make sure that in addition to growing our caucus to over 100 members and coordinating with all of you on the outside in new ways, that we also make sure that we are not just changing the rulers, but changing the rules. 2024 is going to give us another opportunity to make those changes across the country at every level of government. So, as we enter the election season, I want to suggest to you that it is not sufficient to just have 50 Democratic senators. We need to elect and get on record 50 Democratic senators who are willing to get rid of the Jim Crow legacy filibuster. That blocks progress on everything we do. The rules, not just the rulers. Every single Democratic senator, whether first-time candidate or multi-term incumbent, should be pushed to commit to get rid of the filibuster because it's the only path forward to codifying abortion, to raising the minimum wage, to passing the PRO Act, to protecting voting rights, to getting money out of politics, to getting statehood for DC and Puerto Rico, to passing the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, to reforming our cruelty-based immigration system, and passing basic necessary reforms to the Supreme Court. So these are the rules that we need to change to bring about justice, and we need to educate our people about the filibuster, because if we go out and tell people that they just can give us a simple majority in the House or the Senate and keep the White House, we're not going to get these things done, and people are going to lose faith in us. We have to explain that even 2 years ago, we didn't have 48 senators who were willing to get rid of the filibuster to codify abortion rights. And with John Fetterman, we now have 49. But we need 50 Democratic senators who are willing to get rid of it for all of these priorities. Now, I know it's possible. I'm going to end here because I've seen you in action. I have marched with you. I have been arrested with you. I have worked as an organizer on the ground. And what I know is that when we organize with love and with generosity instead of scarcity and fear, we win. We bring more people in. I have seen and marched with factory workers and undocumented immigrants and black women and indigenous people and seen people put it all on the line with the generations of wisdom that bring about courage and conviction. I've seen dreamers demand dignity and young people demand urgency on gun violence and climate change, and then organize to build our movement and bring in every person and every place. That is our mission. Are you ready, Netroots Nation, to take it on? Let's win this fight. Let's fight for justice. Thank you. And now, please join me in welcoming my friends, fellow progressive champions in our fight for justice, Representatives Chuy Garcia and Jan Schakowsky. And Marcos Walitsis, who started this all from that little blog. Thank you, Marcos.
Am I here?
What do you want to
I'm going to be here.
Hi, everybody. Hi again. So we're all kind of still basking in the glow, not of just Congresswoman Jayapal's speech, but that incredible panel before us. What do you guys think about them? So yesterday I spoke about how far we'd come from, as a party 20 years ago. That did not exist. We had great candidates. They didn't win very often. Now we're winning. They're in Congress. We have a new generation. And here with me is, I'm not going to say old generation, because they actually haven't been in Congress as long, but they are the leadership of the Congressional Progressive Caucus, and as you know, we've just heard. And I really want to start asking you guys what you think about that new generation, about these incredible Congress people we just saw on this stage.
Well, you heard what I think, so I'm going to defer to Chuy and Jan. I think they're amazing. This is what we need.
How great were they? How great were they?
The future, Marcos,
Give him a few minutes.
I'm your ally.
thank you. Thank you. We hear you. We hear you and we feel you. Thank you very much. Marcos, to your question, I simply want to say that the present looks promising and the future is bright. These are the folks that not only will win new majorities, but that will fight for communities, advance our country, and transform the world that we live in, without a doubt.
All right. Yep. So, just to be clear, I'm going to be using first names with these Congress people. It's not a sign of disrespect. It's a sign that we're all here amongst friends and that there is a familiarity. So I just want to be very clear. So, Jan,
yes,
you were in Congress 20 years ago when the Netroots sort of emerged. It was a much different Democratic Party back then. Can you speak a little bit about that?
Well, first of all, let me say about women.
So,
first of all, let me say.
So, I want to be very clear. I want to be very clear. Jan Schakowsky is a supporter of a negotiated two-state solution in the dignity. Now, I know there's a group of you who don't believe that. I encourage everybody else in this room to look up Jan Schakowsky on her website on the position. And
you know, I want to say something.
Okay.
So I do want to say something. And I want to say something to all of you. And that is, let me speak now. Know your allies. I am one of the highest ranking Jewish members of Congress, have been one of the most outspoken voices for justice for the Palestinians and currently,
let her finish.
And currently a vocal critic of this current administration in the state of Israel. I am absolutely opposed the kind of violence against the Palestinians that is happening right now. I have spoken out to these things. So, don't go after your allies. I'll just leave. Maybe I should just walk off.
Guys, can I say something? Can I say something as somebody that's been in the streets and has participated in a lot of demonstrations? I want you to know that we have been fighting to make it clear that Israel is a racist state, that the Palestinian people deserve self-determination and autonomy, that the dream of a two-state solution is slipping away from us, that it does not even feel possible. It does not even feel possible. And I want you to know that while you may have arguments with whether or not some of us on stage are fighting hard enough, I do want you to know that there is an organized opposition on the other side, and it isn't the people that are on this stage. It is people that are literally trying to make sure that we do not take the positions we take. The Congressional Progressive Caucus and Jan Schakowsky, Chuy Garcia, everybody that was on stage before has been pushing and pushing and pushing. And so while I deeply respect and I thank you for your voices and for making this issue heard and for making the anger and the frustration and the disappointment real in these rooms, I want to just ask you to work with us on that organized opposition that is not on this stage, and to just allow us to continue to work with you to build that. And I really hope that you'll let us continue to talk about the things that we need to do to build the progressive movement in this country. That's what this panel is about. And I know that Representative Schakowsky, that any of us on stage are willing to sit down and meet with you and talk to you and organize together and figure out how we strategize. But if you would, I want to, again, thank you for doing what you're doing and just ask you if we can continue with the conversation of these thousands of people that are in the room about how we build that stronger movement that can take on these big oppositions. I thank you.
So, getting back to the question, so clearly as part of the movement for 20 years, we have come a long way.
Why don't you move a question to Chuy and then come back.
All right. So. Thank you.
Family, you have been heard. You have been heard. Listen, you have been heard, and it's not possible to sign the bill today, all right? Congress isn't in session. So, listen, since we're talking about a family, Uncle Reggie's on the stage right now, okay? Is there a way that you can find the respect that you seek to demonstrate that respect here and now? And that's not to minimize, no, listen here. I'm on the mic, Ashe, okay? So is there a way that you can find the respect that you seek and demonstrate that? Because from my traditions, you don't get what you don't give, okay? And so out of respect for you, I'm here from my heart, because remember when my words, we said we can have tough conversations in love. I'm asking you, can you give these folks the respect that they're asking, and so they can talk about the work we have at hand, which is in addition to your issue, easing the plight of suffering for millions of other people. Is that possible? I can't hear you, right? Rep. Jayapal just said that.
from you. They want
Right?
a commitment for you to speak with them. They want a commitment for you to speak with them.
I've always
Right.
met with them.
I can't commit that because I'm not her staffer. But what I'm asking you is to use respect and decorum.
Jan,
So the question is,
say you're happy to speak with them.
go, Jim.
You know, I
Let her speak.
Look.
You asked her to speak. Let her speak.
I am happy to meet with you. I would appreciate if you would allow that kind of conversation instead of picketing my house, which you do. And I am happy to talk with you. And I hope at the end of the conversation, you understand that I am a powerful ally of yours in the effort to make sure that we have justice for the Palestinians. That is my commitment. I will meet with you. Which I have.
You've received your commitment. Is that good enough for you? Okay. Can we proceed with the program? And so, since we're a family, out of respect for those who've raised their voice, Martin Luther King said, we'll remember the silence of our friends. Our friends are being silent right now, huh? So if you want this thing to be supported, I need to hear you that we can continue this program. Do we want this program to continue? Listen, I didn't tell you to shut up, and don't talk to me that way, fam. I don't disrespect you. I did not, sir. I don't use those words. Sir, blessings to you. So I would love to have a moment of clearing, right, out of respect for y'all, right? I'd love to have a moment of clearing. I'm not talking to you, right? So, moment of clearing out of respect for your issue, out of respect for these elected officials, so we can proceed. If we're the progressive movement, this ain't progress, y'all. The root word of progressive is progress. Please tell me what this is. This is a stalemate. We respect the First Amendment, but we also need to respect one another. Can we do that?
What does she want?
Are you going to the speech with the Israeli president?
I'm not.
Are you? I'm not.
So can we continue?
Would it be better for me just to leave here?
No.
Let's try this again.
I mean, you could if you want.
What?
I guess you could. And you could just say you'll meet with them right now.
That I what?
You'll meet with them right now.
That I what?
That you'll meet with them right now.
No, I'm not going to do that. This is an agenda.
Okay. I think we're gonna have to.
Let's see.
We're disrupting a whole conference in the country.
Do you not feel heard? I mean, serious question. Do you not feel heard?
I mean, I don't know what to do about this. I need to meet with them. I don't know what else I can do.
How many of you want to hear the rest of the program?
That's what most people want.
How many of you want to hear how we're going to beat Republicans next year? How many of you want to hear about the future of the Democratic Party and our progressive caucus? I think the wishes of this room are clear. You've been heard. We have a broad series of challenges as a movement. We have had an opportunity to talk about many of them. You have been heard. Does anybody think this is actually helpful? Does anybody think this is a way to build allyship? Does anybody think this is constructive in any way? Seriously, guys, you've been heard. You've been heard. You've been heard. I think everybody else wants to hear what we're going to do about the issues facing this country. You have been heard. It was a very effective protest. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
You were heard. So.
I'm not going to try.
Huh?
Go to someone else.
Yeah. So. Are they walking out? They're walking out. So, we here on the outside.
If I agree to meet with them now, maybe they'll go out.
But they're leaving.
They have left. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Wait. They're on their way out. They're on
Should
their way
I?
out.
I'm on.
They are leaving.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
So, we on the outside, all of us here, have been watching the Republicans in Congress captured by this MAGA extreme.
Hey, Marcus, let me interrupt you really quickly. So can we just reset the room?
Yeah, we just
Please.
Right? So, with respect, as one who's been in these streets for longer than some of y'all been alive, thank you for your voice. But for those of us that want to hear, can we take a breath in peace and then go in peace? All right. So, everyone inhale deeply, exhale peacefully. I'll clear the room. May we proceed in peace.
Thank you very much. I think it would be helpful to just take a moment to really remember that first panel and just how amazing those young Democrats are that are this new generation of our Democratic Party. We did not have that 20 years ago when we began that. What we've worked to collectively has led to this moment that has elevated those voices. And to be really just in this moment, the Progressive Caucus, Congressional Progressive Caucus, has over 100 members. Half the Democratic Caucus is Progressive Caucus members. The Blue Dogs, they have 6. They have 6. We are seeing a definite shift in the direction of our party. Chewy, you've been watching this sort of shift, this transition. How's that feel like from the inside?
It feels great. It reminds me of 40 years ago in Chicago when the Rainbow Coalition first came together, elected a black progressive member of Congress, Chicago's first progressive black mayor. And it was significant because it began to dismantle the old Chicago corrupt, racist, and sexist machine. In Congress, we've seen grassroots organizing elect progressives, make the Progressive Caucus the largest caucus in Congress, and we've seen our leader, Pramila Jayapal, negotiate key elements that move us forward in an inclusive manner, beginning the transformations of the types of things that need to happen domestically. We've got a lot of work to do, but we're on the right track, and more people than ever believe that we can address climate change, we can address civil rights, voting rights, women's rights, restore reproductive rights, increase the minimum wage to a living wage, and ensure that there is shared prosperity. So in my 4+ years in Congress, that's what I've seen. I am so honored to be a part of it, but we're on the right track. And looking at the elections for next year, very promising if we don't blow it, and as long as we keep raising the issues that affect everyone in our country, that will be another great step as we begin to transform our country, and thus, by the same token, the rest of the world, because there are many foreign policy, international implications to what we do in Congress.
All right.
Pramila, the congressional, I'm going to be, maybe I won't be diplomatic, but the Progressive Caucus wasn't really a factor in anything in the past. It was a title that some people wore. It really had no juice. It had no pull. Nobody took it seriously. That has changed under you. What's going on? What have you done to whip that caucus into shape?
Well, thank you. I'm an organizer and I'm an institutional person. Like, what structures do we need to build so that we bring people in and then they can be successful? Because otherwise you can have really progressive members. It's not that we didn't, I mean, we've had Jan, we've had Keith Ellison, Raul Grijalva, really progressive members, but there was no collective structure to require us to use our organized power together. And so when I came in, that was part of what I saw. I was like, oh my God, this is what I'm coming into. There's nothing here to like really support us coming together as a collective bloc. So we passed rules reforms. You know, it's just too bad because I think part of what we have to do is understand who it is we're fighting and where we target our energy. So we've tried to be more strategic about that. We've tried to unite people. We've tried to actually develop the infrastructure to fund candidates like Summer Lee and Delia, who had enormous amounts of money coming in against them. We've given leadership roles to people like Chewy, who really has shown what he can do right here in Chicago to take on the machine. And all in all, I think we're trying to build a stronger, united force where people understand that compromising doesn't mean if you want to detain 100 people and I want to detain 0, that we end up with 50. What we need is a principled compromise where people move forward, maybe not as far as we want to go because we're always progressives who want more, but that there is a principle that nobody gets pushed behind in order for somebody else to move forward. And that we don't just settle for incremental change without even pushing hard. Like, we can stand up and fight, and we don't even have to win every fight. Sometimes just the fight is worthwhile. And figuring out that strategy and then doing a lot of things also to build the progressives in the strength of progressives in the Senate and to really have it be House and Senate together. So there's been a lot that's gone into it, and I'm really just so proud of our members and of the executive board, of our diversity, and of the unity that we have towards each other, recognizing the strength of the opposition that is outside of this room, outside of this building, and very, very well funded.
So, Jan, we're gonna try this again. You've been in Congress longer than these two, and so you've been in the inside seeing that transition from a front row seat. So I'm curious how it looks like from your vantage. You've been a strong, unapologetic progressive your entire career, but the party always wasn't like that. So what has that transition looked like for you?
Well, first of all, let me say when I got to Congress in 1999, there were 36 women in the House of Representatives. We represented about 13% of the makeup of the Congress. Well, we're still not there at parity, but we now have twice as many women in, and one of the things about the women, you saw that there are now young women. When I ran for Congress, you really didn't see young women there. Mostly it was women whose children were already grown and we're not representing of the younger generation. I think it is so thrilling to see the representatives that were here today, and there are many more of the young people in the Congress. And the idea that you can run and win at 25 years old, as Maxwell has, is, I think, something liberating for all of us. And to be a leader at any age, and to be a change maker at any age. But it is also true that really the Progressive Caucus had its whole renaissance when Pramila Jayapal became the chair of the Progressive Caucus. There's no question about it. But we were all ready for it as well.
Exactly.
I mean, there were people who were longtime progressives like myself who were so ready to be able to change policy, to be players in the formation of the policies that we were going to take. And I want to say, in this country right now, I heard you, Pramila, say earlier talking about poverty. But here in this United States of America, especially today, if you see what the Republicans are doing, that we have come too far tolerating things like homelessness or hunger in this country. And it's not just a matter of tweaking. We have to say that the United States of America, the richest country in the world, at the richest moment in history, we demand that we have equality and equity in our economy, and we're going to fight to the finish to get there.
Those of us on the outside, we've been watching the Republicans just sort of like walk off a cliff. They're not even attempting to talk to voters anymore. Yeah. It's actually quite shocking. But I'm actually really curious, and I bet a lot of people would be too, what's it like seeing them on the inside when the cameras aren't rolling and the reporters aren't around? Are they as angry and hateful of everything, as individuals as they are when they present to the world?
I get asked that question all the time, and I have really good conversations with some of them, and some of them are not what they are on TV, but some of them are, and in a way it almost doesn't matter because what they're doing is crazy and cruel and completely unjust. And so I understand that I work with strange bedfellows sometimes, in taking on privacy. I was questioning Christopher Wray the other day in Judiciary Committee, and I was really questioning the FBI director on our civil liberties, on our privacy protections. And I got so much praise from the Republicans, from Matt Gaetz, from Jim Jordan. Jim Jordan has never said anything nice about me, but he did that day. And I think for me, it's about how do we just, we can say that these people are, some of them are, nice people, but some of them are not. And at the end of the day, we just have to look at their behavior. And their behavior is cruel. We have to take it on. We cannot accept it. We cannot say, oh, that's not that bad anymore because they keep making it worse and worse and worse. We have to call it out. Call out the cruelty, call out the bullying, call out the racism, call out the xenophobia. Because if we don't, we are letting ourselves think that this is normal. None of this is normal, and we have to push back on it.
Yeah.
There are definitely Republicans who know better, who maybe in the privacy of their home or in a private conversation will say this is ridiculous. And yet when the votes come down, all of them go along with each other. Now, we are in a situation right now where we know the majority of Americans want to do something serious about gun violence. So every single member of the House of Representatives has signed a discharge petition that if you get enough members to sign it, we will get a vote on ending gun violence, at least some of the measures. So we have every single Democrat, and all we need, I think, is 3 or 4 more Republicans. And the politics, thanks to all the activists on gun violence, has really changed. The American people are with us, thank you very much. And yet, they have not, at least to date, and I'm not holding my breath, to see if we can just get 3 more Republicans. They are chicken shit. They are afraid to go against the party. And I think their calculation is, I don't want to lose a primary election, then I certainly can't win re-election. But you know, I want to make this point. There are now 18 districts held by Republicans right now that Joe Biden won. That means there are 18 vulnerable Republicans right now. We especially have to hold them accountable and say if they ever plan to win an election, they better sign on with us for the American people. We can win this. We can do this.
So it's very hard to be able to say that there are still moderates in the Republican Party based on the voting records. But let us not forget that Donald Trump has taken the Republican Party hostage and is holding them hostage, and that may last through the next presidential election. But this is an opportunity for us to demonstrate to the American people that Republicans are out of touch. They're out of touch on reproductive rights. They're out of touch by continuing to attack the LGBTQ community, by banning books, by legislating hatred against the trans community, and on many other issues. This is an opportunity for us to continue to organize, to continue to bring the issues that matter to the American people to the fore. That is the key for success in taking a majority in the House of Representatives, keeping the Senate, and keeping the White House. That will help free up the hostages who want to be more reasonable, who want to be more moderate, who can cross the line and restore some level of bipartisanship. Let's not lose sight of that. But right now, the conditions favor progressive politics and continued change and transformation if we do our work across this land.
Yes.
Can I make one point?
Please.
You should know that yesterday, in a vote on the funding the military, they passed an amendment that changed the rules that said that the military will no longer pay for women who want to travel to have reproductive health, to have an abortion. They will have to pay for that on their own. They passed that amendment. They also want to make sure that the military does not provide any kind of help in healthcare for transgender people. They passed legislation to prohibit that. They don't want to allow any of these kinds of issues. They're adding that to the military budget. It's bad enough. I hardly ever vote. I think once in my life voted for the increase in the military budget. But now they want to add all these cultural things to the military budget decisions. I mean, they are absolutely disgusting. And right now, they managed to get those votes. We have to get rid of them, and we have to take the majority.
They didn't only get those votes on that amendment, but Nancy Mace, the Republican who's been blasting Republicans for those culture war issues, including abortion, voted for that amendment.
That's exactly right.
So they talk, even when they talk, they cannot escape the vote.
That's right.
It's kind of amazing. And of course, it's unpopular. Even in Kentucky, the effort to eliminate abortion at the ballot box failed.
Yeah.
And the doubling down gives me a lot of hope for next year. And I'm optimistic the 18 Biden districts, the new generation of candidates that are still emerging. I mean, this is an ongoing process. Who we saw on stage before wasn't the end result. It's part of this progressive uprising that we're seeing. So I'm feeling extremely positive. What does a Democratic House look like next year? Are you still going to be chair of the Progressive Caucus?
No, I instituted 2 terms because I think we should have term limits on leadership and bring in new people. So I will not be the chair. I'll be like a senior advisor or something, you know. But and I'm really excited to see the new leadership emerge. But look, I think a Democratic House with a Democratic Senate that eliminates the filibuster, because I know I talk about this all the time, but we have to do it, and we have to help people understand why this is so important, because otherwise they feel like we've let them down, right? But here's what we can do. We can pass universal child care, universal pre-K. We can pass a living wage, at least a $15 minimum wage. We can get rid of that tipped minimum wage. We can pass voting rights. We can make Washington, D.C., give them statehood so that people in D.C. can actually vote. Same with Puerto Rico. We can pass the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. We can pass the For the People Act and get money out of politics. Those are very real things. So is, by the way, the investments in housing that we had in Build Back Better. So is the ability for free college, like Bernie and I have been pushing for a long time. And we can start to take on not just 10 drugs, but many more drugs to actually bring the healthcare system to care about people instead of profits. But very, very quick, last thing I want to say is, do not think, when people say to you, politics is the art of the possible, just say back to them, as a way to tell you not to hope for big things, right? You've heard that. Just say back to them, if politics is the art of the possible, it is our job as activists, wherever we sit, to push the boundaries of what is seen as possible. The possible is not static. You are changing it every single day, and I'm grateful to you.
And let's not forget that while Republicans have banked on scapegoating immigrants, immigration reform is doable. We can do it. It is the most frustrating thing that I have experienced in my 4+ years, but we think the next 2 years will all open up new possibilities with Republican votes, because they will be freed of the yoke of Trumpism in this country, hopefully forever. Let's remember that was a backlash against the country electing the first black president to a great degree. We can do a huge blow to racism. And don't forget that it was the Progressive Congressional Caucus that set the stage in the Build Back Better legislation that would truly be transformative for families, for working people, and for addressing climate change. That is the unfinished work that we've got to carry out.
Okay, and if I can have one more word. So when we say we mean you, me, everyone. It's all about turnout. This is not rocket science. This is making sure that every single person makes a plan. All of the activists make a plan. All of your friends, relatives, and co-workers make a plan on getting to the polls. And now is the time to do that. And I like to end things like this by saying, when we fight, we win. When we fight, we win. When we fight, we win. So we have to be fighting, voting, and organizing.
So I know we're supposed to wrap up. I'm going to sneak in one last question because we brought up Build Back Better. And I was not a Biden supporter in the primary, to say the least. I've been pleasantly surprised by the presidency. I don't think he gets enough credit. What do you guys think?
I agree.
I was not a big Joe Biden fan. It has been incredible to see what an ally we've created in the White House. It's because of people power, the growth of the Progressive Caucus as well, and that our communities, that Rainbow Coalition, delivered the key states that enabled us to win the Senate. Right. And we held the line.
Yeah, just on Biden, I was a Bernie supporter, and you know, I would have been thrilled with Elizabeth. And so when Biden was in, I was like, oh man. But I got to tell you, having worked with him for the last 2 years, he is absolutely following through on the domestic economic policy pieces of this. Not everything, I'm not saying I agree with everything, but there is no question that the approach to the economy is about lifting all workers up. I mean, just think about the fact that we invested $65 billion into environmental justice for the first time ever, right? We're protecting public lands, we're doing all of these things, and so I am a Biden fan now, but I think we got to have strong people in the administration, continue to have people like Lena Khan at the FTC, people like Rohit Chopra at the CFPB, continue to have those people surrounding him, and you all in the states forcing this agenda, which is usually a campaign agenda, to be the agenda that he pursues when he wins the White House again with your help.
So I think that's things. Give yourself a round of applause.
We made it.
We've got a great year ahead of us. Let's organize. Let's get the next generation of Democrats elected.
All right. Thanks, Chewie.
Thank you, Netroots family. We'll see you next year in Baltimore.